I remember when I was 17 years old. I just graduated from high school about 3 or 4 months ago, and I just started working my first job. And it wasn't like a typical job that you would get when you're 17 years old. This was like a job, like a career that people been working there for 34 years, 40 years. So being 17 years old at that type of job, I was obviously a child amongst adults. You know, I would see people looking at me, man. I didn't have no facial hair. I might have had like a mustache coming on, but nothing really, right? So I was obviously a kid. And I remember one time this lady asked me how old I was, and I was telling her that I was 17 years old. And she was like, see, I told you, that's that dude there, younger, whatever, right? So, after working there for a few months, I started, building like work relationships with people, just, having work conversations and stuff. And I remember they had this lady, right? At the time, she was in her late 20s, like 27, 28 years old. And, I guess they thought it was cute. Oh, they got a little 17-year-old, little boy here or whatever. And she was asking me, did I have a little girlfriend and everything? And, I was telling her, no, I didn't have a girlfriend or whatever. And I don't know how the conversation got to sex, right? I don't know how it turned to actually asking me about sex. And we was talking, and then she was like, you want me to hook you up with some of my 22, 23-year-old friends? They're, you get with them, they'll show you how to do it. And them little girls your age, you'll be putting it on them. That's what she told me or whatever. But, I was telling her like, nah, I'm good, And I remember another time, and it was another older lady. The lady had like 14, if I'm not, she had 14 years on me, right? I was at the store and, she was with I think she was with her mama at that, right? So she, she noticed me and she, she said I was handsome or whatever. And she asked me my age. And I told her my age at the time. And she's like, I apologize. Like, she apologized. I was like, it's all good or whatever. This and that doesn't so. But I saw this lady, I'm going to say a year later, and I recognized her. I remember I was going to get something to eat. And I recognized the lady, but I didn't think she recognized me. And we kind of made eye contact, and I thought she didn't even recognize me. And she like stuck her tongue out at me. Look, I don't think that, I'm overdoing it. But if somebody, hit on you a year ago, and then you see them again, and they stick their tongue out at you, and I'm thinking like, it can, if I pursued her, it'll get sexual. You know what I'm saying? But, both times, I didn't make no attempt, like I say, even in the first instance when it was offered, I turned it down. And there's been multiple occasions where, it was offered and, I passed on it, right? I say that to say, for one, sex can be turned down. You know what I'm saying? What would have happened if, when that woman offered that 17-year-old boy 22, 23-year-old girls, women, to have sex with them? Like, what would that? Because I know a lot of people watching the video, a lot of dudes watching the video probably like, whoo, boy, look, boy. But look, what would have happened though, right? Because pleasure can't outweigh purpose. Ain't nothing wrong with sex. Ain't nothing wrong with sexual pleasure, right? But it can't just be done willy-nilly. It can't be, in anything. If something have purpose and it comes along with pleasure, anytime pleasure trump purpose, it's probably going to be a problem. Straight up. Because what was going to happen from that? It's just going to create a dude who was going, eventually, he was going to get turned out sexually. And then he was going to have out of control sex drive. He's going to try to appease that sexual urge any way he got to. Running game, breaking somebody's heart, get his heart. The same stuff that I talk about in Dating Wars. I talk about that up in that video and a couple other videos, right? So yeah, you can't let pleasure outweigh purpose when it comes to sex and in general. But in this instance, we're talking about sex. It's important for men to turn down sex. It is. Ain't nothing wrong with a dude turning down sex, right? That don't mean you're a sucker. That don't mean you're whatever a lame's supposed to be or a goofy or whatever. And I think a lot of men feel like men ain't got no choice but to have sex. Sure, you in a certain situation, you in a certain environment, a man is gonna have sex, and some will even go as far as to say they supposed to. But why? Seriously, why? Or seriously, Somebody answer that again. Why are you supposed to? What's the benefits of it? What is it? What is this going to cause? Short term, long term? And what happens if you say, nah, I'm good, I'm straight? Nothing. You go about your life, you can avoid a bunch of headaches. Some of those that I named and others. That's just real talk. So yeah, it is important for men to turn down sex, right? And do it with your wife. That's who it's supposed to be done with, right? One man, one woman. People probably say, what? Oh, man, you crazy. Why? What would that hurt? Size that one up. How would that hurt anything? Two people being faithful to each other, having sex with each other, they start a family, they have kids, stay together. What's the downfall of that part? See, that's what I'm talking about, right? But that's the perspective that I'm talking about. That's what you gotta have, that's purpose and intent for the sex drive. You got purpose and intent for it down. On a natural level, it's spiritual too, but just from a natural, that's real purpose and intent for the sex drive. Like, come on, what we talking about? That could be the result of turning down sex and giving it purpose and intent. Good situation, ain't nothing bad about that happening. That's what everybody really want for themselves. Anybody you love, you got a son, you got a daughter, right? You don't want no woman messing over him, and you don't want no man messing over your daughter. What I just explained is that. Committed to each other, a commitment, marriage, the highest level of commitment you can do. That's the highest level of commitment. Being faithful to each other, having sex with each other. What's what? Right? What we talking about? Even if you're a dude, don't believe that you can't turn down sex. And sometimes, you know what? Like I said in the video, sex struggles. Sex struggles or sex addiction. I forgot the name of it. I think it's sexual struggle, right? Sometimes you might still have the temptation. You might not be without the temptation, but sometimes you just know what the right thing is to do. And you just got to enter that righteous unknown. And I'll talk about that in another video called The Righteous Unknown. And just do what you got to do. Sometimes you can't go to certain situations. Sometimes you might need to be in certain environments, in certain situations, because, it's more conducive to you doing what you're supposed to do sexually, being responsible with your sex drive. Look, this ain't who this dude think he is. Just because he ain't none of it. This ain't about none of that, man. This just real talk. It's real. It's real, straight up. I'm with whoever. If somebody want to have a conversation about it, I'm open to having a conversation. Everything, it's real talk. This ain't no hot shot. This dude think he's better than somebody's stuff, because when you start talking like this, people kind of start, them emotions and them thoughts start rising up. Man, this ain't got nothing to do with that. I'm far from perfect.